Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes, that's a good start. The Chief Innovation Officer, that's who I am. Simon Gooch from Swedish Radio. Let's see if this is working. Yeah. So I'm going to talk about innovating for a world that's also digital and social. So this building here, a couple of you in the audience might recognize. This is a very famous building in Stockholm. It houses two of the largest national newspapers, but also houses the largest commercial radio broadcaster, Bauer. I used to work there. I worked there for 9 years, running digital. And when I was there, I tried, as long as I could, to try and persuade people that we don't need to have a digital strategy for success. For success, we need just one strategy, which naturally includes digital, because that's the way the world is today and the way the world is going to be in the future. The other thing I tried to get everyone to listen to do around was that we don't need to have a digital media director either, not in 2012, 13, 14, 15 or 16, and I managed to succeed in getting rid of that title by quitting and joining Swedish Radio. One of the reasons I joined Swedish Radio, I loved my time at Bauer, fantastic company, doing really exciting, innovative things as well. But when Swedish Radio came calling and said that they were looking for somebody to work as Chief Innovation Officer to replace their previous digital director with somebody looking at innovation across the whole company, not just looking at innovation in terms of digital, and not just looking at it in terms of technology, but looking at terms of innovation around content and as well, I simply couldn't resist the challenge. So I've been at Swedish Radio since last August. A little bit of background. So you probably know that Sweden is, just like the rest of the Nordics, a highly connected nation. We have massive smartphone, computer, tablet penetration. We have super fast 4G networks. And for that reason, I think, we also see that the Nordics is an area where people are really testing new services. And the pace of change, I think, is affecting the way people consume media. And not just media, the way people work in society in the Nordics in a way that really affects the kind of content we produce and the way that our consumers, our listeners, expect us to react. So these are the kind of the three things that the three program directors, myself, Björn and Cecilia at Swedish Radio, try to talk to all of our staff about why we're changing the way that Swedish Radio works. So firstly, we want to adapt to a world that is also digital and social, because we mustn't forget that the analog part is really successful. We still have massive reach on FM, so it's also digital and social, not just digital. We also need to find smarter, more effective ways of working. We need to look at our production process. We need to look at the whole way that we set up the radio production within the company to make sure that we are adapting and changing. And finally, we need to package our content better. We produce, I think it's about 450 pieces of content every day. We need to make sure that they actually reach our audience in a better way, using the digital technologies that are out there to be much, much smarter. So why a Chief Innovation Officer? What was it that made Swedish Radio choose to go this route? Well, firstly, my job is to work across the whole organisation, not just in a digital silo. I think that is really, really important. That's something we also did very successfully at Bauer in Sweden. My role, I'm responsible for insights, so our audience research department. So I actually kind of wish I was in a different seminar right now, because they're talking about youth audiences, which would be really exciting. I work with innovation and I work with development. So I'm trying to create a climate within the company that doesn't just mean that innovation is within an innovation lab, and we do have one of those, but also it creates innovation across the whole company. It creates a culture that encourages that, breaking down the barriers between journalism, broadcasting, digital and social, so that everyone's working together towards the same goal and the same mission. And to try and help Swedish Radio explore the different relationships that define these challenges. And those relationships, I'm going to take you through a few of those now. So the first one is the relationship between linear radio and on-demand audio. We talk a lot about parallel lines. So parallel lines in the fact that linear radio listening in Sweden, just like the majority of countries in the world, is really stable, really strong. 7 million weekly listeners to Swedish Radio out of a population of 10 million. So that's great. And it's stable. But our growth is coming from digital. Not just on our own platforms, but beyond, across multiple other places where consumers can reach audio today. The live streaming, the linear radio part online is increasing, but the real growth is coming from on-demand. So when we look at this, we try to sort of split up the way we look at live catch-up or flow and episode. And if you look at the sort of the top right there, live and flow, that would be like when you're listening to the afternoon show that's just going on in the afternoon on one of our stations, P4, or listen to a breakfast show on any station, you're dipping in and out of a live radio show. The opposite of that would be a digital-only podcast or a documentary, something you've chosen to listen to at this particular moment, often with headphones on. We also have a sort of a live appointment to listen section, which we think is really interesting. We have a huge show, which is like a crossword on the radio on Saturday mornings, or the 4:45 news broadcast, which is a legendary time in Sweden. So that's how we see linear and on-demand, but this top left area, the idea of a sort of a catch-up and flow, we think there's an opportunity there, something not too dissimilar to the things that NPR1 are working on. I'll come back to that in a bit. So when we try to work on those ideas, we have a little team called the Innovation Lab that do this kind of stuff.
P3 dokumentär. Om du efter den vill krypa ner i höstmörkret och lyssna på kittlande spökhistorier, testa då Creepypodden med Jack Werner.
So the innovation team, I think one of the things that's really important about the work they do is that last part, the fact that we've tested a load of stuff and some of the things we say, that's not going to work, and we kill the project. I think that's one of the things that I think is extremely important to get across to everybody, that don't be afraid of testing, but then don't be afraid of also killing it. Set goals, clear goals of what you want to achieve from your projects. So if any of you were in a room up there earlier on, the session before, you'd have heard about the Next Generation project. So what you're seeing here is a couple of our hosts with a couple of guests walking down the street in Washington the day after Donald Trump won the election, broadcasting live on our morning show on P1, our morning current affairs show. And yeah, they're running the whole show here from the back, from a rucksack with a little small tablet device. They're running everything themselves from there. They're not broadcasting this back to a studio in Washington. This is just going straight out into the Swedish, to our Swedish listeners. And that's a fantastic piece of innovation as well. Yet these teams don't really work with each other. We also have a set of developers working on our apps and our sites. And again, there's not that much crossover. So one of the things that we're looking to organise now is how can we set up Swedish Radio to really encourage innovation and development, but with our end users in focus? So recognising that journalism and technology are interdependent, increasing the capacity to develop our production processes for both linear and on demand. So no longer looking at radio in terms of we must fill a 24-hour radio schedule, looking at everything we produce that is pre-recorded should be on demand first, from the commissioning process onwards, modernising our technical architecture, and making sure that we have a stable and flexible platform to support this rapid development that we need to put in place. So merging all these teams together into a new department that really truly brings together broadcast, FM, digital and social under one roof. So then the relationship between our own and external platforms. So previously, we've expected listeners to find us on other platforms and come straight to us. Bit confusing. These days, we make sure that we can reach our end consumers from our apps, but also working together with partners to make sure that we offer the best experience from the different platforms. Now, I think everyone here is completely aware of the fact that more people are consuming audio than ever before, that the sales of headphones have exploded. One of the things that I took away from South by Southwest when I was there the last couple of weeks was this really interesting thing that's the idea of hearables, the idea that the technology within hearing aids is now starting to merge with the technology that's actually in consumer headphones. And you're getting completely new ways of potentially consuming audio. On top of that, if you look at things like Sonos, this is an outdoor advertising campaign, indoor is in the underground, but advertising campaign for what was a quite niche product that is now becoming a mainstream product. This was just a few months ago in Stockholm. Sonos are working together with Amazon, and you all know about the Amazon Echo, I assume, and what that can do for interfaceless devices. So if you look at this slide, which I took from Miri Mika's Internet Trends last summer, you'll see how the way we interact with consumer devices has shifted from the keyboard through the trackpad, the joystick, the mouse, until 2007, 10 years ago, when the touch screen became massively important. And now we're shifting even further away from that with the advent of Siri first, and now with Amazon Alexa, where we can talk to our devices instead. And the screen becomes less and less important. Now, this device I'd never heard of before until I was in Austin last week, but it came up a couple of times. This is a remote control. It's controlling a TV, which isn't a screenless device, but still. You'll see a little blue button there, which means you can talk to it in the way you can talk to your Apple TV remote control. But this is Comcast's Xfinity remote control. And you know that there's been a lot of talk in the TV world about how kids are using tablets, and now they're going forward to the TV and trying to touch it. Well, they're all 7, 8 years old now. And the cool 3-year-olds now in the US, they want to control everything with their voice. So when they go up to the TV, and they expect to be able to control the TV with their voice. So we're talking about a voice-first generation now. We've got Siri in the car asking us what they can help us with. And Google Home, which is coming to Europe very, very soon. I think this stat is amazing. So Gartner are predicting that 30% of all web browsing will be done by this kind of screenless device by 2020. That's a massive opportunity for anyone working in the audio-first business like us. So the relationship between core business and the lure of multimedia, because we have this fantastic core business, which is audio. But it's very easy to also be attracted to all the opportunities that are there around text, around video, and so on. One of the most important projects we're working on at Swedish Radio right now, we've launched the first version of it a couple of weeks ago, is a personalised Swedish Radio Play, our app. The first phase is looking at long-form audio, so recommendation engine, curated playlists, and also trying to break the self-imposed filter bubbles that we have that are our own radio stations, but also making sure that we're not just presenting content that the consumer or the listener would expect, but also breaking out of that echo chamber that can exist, part of the public service remit, I think. And secondly, and this is really exciting for me, exploring what could be an audio-first, personalised digital news experience where text and video and graphics and so on will be secondary to the audio experience. So then, when we've got all these different technologies, the relationship between the decisions we make and the data that they can provide us is also extremely important, and something that's perhaps at public service we've been less, Swedish Radio have been less focused on in the past. Now, for me, when we were looking at being audio as our core business, it's extremely important we also shift from the irrelevant web metrics of traditional websites, page views, and so on and so forth, to instead tracking digital listeners across multiple platforms. That is so key for us to really shift our mindset internally so that we're focusing on the right things, and using then that data that we can collect to inform the development of our radio programming. So to summarize, what we're looking at here is the sort of how we can set up a relationship between both high-tempo innovation and our long-term strategy for the company. The world's moving faster than ever before, and we're shifting from separate strategies to one overall strategy that's also for a world that's digital and social. Trying to encourage innovation across the whole company and focusing on just a few projects, the really key and right ones. And again, parallel lines. We see that FM, broadcast listening is stable, on-demand is increasing, and audio is our core business, something that we're extremely proud of at Swedish Radio. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. It's really interesting to see things that fail and also ways to merge innovation across Swedish Radio. There's lots to learn, and I hope we have time for questions later. Now, I worked for the original Virgin Radio in the UK, launching the world's first radio app in 2005. So Virgin Radio has a very special place in my heart. So here's a man who also works for Virgin Radio, this time in France, digital director of Lagardére Active, Alexandre Vekhoff. Alexandre.
Hello, my name is Alexandre Vekhoff. I'm in charge of digital activities in Lagardére Active, and I will introduce to you how we manage digital transformation in our group. Here is the plan, so little focus of who we are, the ecosystem and organization of digital transformation. The three ways we get to run this digital transformation and to try to make a sense to it. The first results we got for Larry, and other benefits we get from the digital transformation of a radio station. Lagardère Group is a worldwide group which operating in 40 countries. There is 4 complementarity units, which are the publishing, the travel retail, the sports, and we, Lagardère Active Radio International, in the media group, which deals with press, radio, TV, digital, and of course, sales house. Lagardère Group, Lagardère Active Radio International is so present in 9 countries. We are operating in Germany, Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, and also Romania with a Virgin Radio station, which was launched recently in January 2015. And it represents a total of 13.5 million of listeners per day and 1,000 employees. And in terms of digital, it represents, I go too fast. We are also present in Africa, in South Africa, in Senegal, in Ivory Coast, and also in Asia, in Cambodia. And so in terms of digital, it represents a total of 13.4 million of web users per month, 50 websites and applications, and a total of 5.6 million of Facebook fans. So how we manage the digital transformation? We consider that there is not a one and only way to run a digital transformation in a radio company. A survey made by Accenture asked 1,900 companies how they run their digital transformation, and it looks like 45% of them didn't start yet the digital transformation. In fact, digital, you see it's a lot of keywords for everyone, ad block, capping, cookie, disruption, etc., etc. And in a radio company, you get this kind of question. how can we create synergy between departments for having a good digitalization? Digital cost money, how we can measure our return of investment, how we can face pure players like Spotify or Deezer, how we can do better sales on our website. 20% of my audience are listening to radio station on digital. What will be the future on that? And where are the business opportunity of going digital? So this is mainly the kind of question you can ask in a radio station. In fact, digital transformation is a transition period which is, should be installed between 10 and 15 years. And in our radio station, we do it like this. Before, generally the digital was depending on programming unit or communication unit. It means that the digital was mainly oriented on program with a lot of content, of quiz, etc. Or when it was depending on communication with a lot of social media because of communication. And in fact, we decided to run the digital transformation by introducing a digital department which was directly depending on the management, top management, and working transversally with the other unit of the radio station company: programming, communication, marketing, sales. So with that kind of organization, it shows us that we got a better collaboration and some better success in running the digital transformation. Then we got this digital department, which is organized with marketing department, content peoples, technical peoples, and we decide to fix 3 directions to run the digital transformation. The first one is about the product. As you are a radio station, you must be sure that your product must be the best online representation of your radio station, and then to give to the listener the best digital experience from the radio station. And especially, it goes by reinforce the convergence between on-air teams and online teams inside the radio station organization, optimize the organization according what you expect to be on digital, more social media, more content or more video, to develop the content following 2 directions, all the content from your on-air, which is the linear content, but also the replay, but all about the DNA of your brand. To think mobile first, of course, because more and more the consumption of the mobile, of the radio station is on mobile, and we strongly believe that the video production is the future of the radio station, and so we try to develop more and more the streaming live of the show. For example, in France, radio stations are filming the live show for 12 hours or 14 hours, which is incredible, but it looks like the audience have increased since we switched from audio to video on the mobile, on the streaming live, and also to develop video replays, short format, etc. So we got a product. Then, as we get the product, we decide to grow the audience of this product. That is to say, to increase every digital audience pulse. It means to anticipate the shift of audience you get from the traditional broadcast to the digital, and then to increase all the KPIs you get inside your digital. It means unique viewers, view page, on mobile and also on website, and also all the video views, streaming source, and the KPIs like reach or fan in Facebook or Instagram. Of course, digital transformation and needs to empower all the teams in the digital KPIs to better face it. So we get a product, we grow the audience, and if we want to make a sense to the digital transformation, it needs also to increase the monetization. And it means to increase the digital, the monetization of your audience on desktop, but also what you are doing in social media or what the inventory of your video. And so we try to develop income from display, mobile, special action, but also the new sources of incomes, programmatic, brand content, or native. The first result we got from this first step we started in 2014 are the following in terms of quantitative. It gives a new communication to the radio brand to the listeners. It also brings a new identity of the radio station. By some example, you become viral and it's a good opportunity for your radio station. It goes, of course, to go opportunity to create innovation. And it gives you a productive approach to grow new audiences. And, of course, it's a new business driver. So this is the first qualitative feedback we got. And here is the quantitative feedback we got from our portfolio. That is to say, in terms of audience, the digital transformation of our radio station brings us a strong gap in terms of audience. And let me share with you an example, which is Poland with Orozet Radio Group. The team of Tomasz in Poland succeed to go by 7 million of unique users in December by the increase of 4 radio websites, Radio Z in purple, Anti-Radio, and Z Chili and Z Gold. So it was dealing with what we did with the digital transformation for radio website. The other point I want to talk to you is how we get another way to diversify our radio station through the digital. And we got this simple equation, which is on one hand the power of the radio station. Radio station is brand awareness, is mass media audiences, power of promotions, sales team, and on the other hand, you get all of the new stuff of the digital, new markets, new audience pool, know-how, and technical skills. And this equation gives us a new business opportunity direction. It can be new brands, new content, but also new services or e-commerce. And let me share with you 2 examples. This is Europa 2. It's a leader radio station in Czech Republic and a musical radio station. And we tried to develop a new product 2 years ago called Hummer. It's an entertainment website. And in fact, through cross-promotion with the radio station, with talks, advertising, social media, and publishing, and it goes by increasing slowly the product. And recently we got this track record of 560K unique users in February. And we expect, and we still have monetization, but we expect to get more and more monetization. The second example is the example of the magazine Elle, which is a new luxury and fashion magazine in France, which have declination in every countries, and it's the first French-speaking version of Elle in Africa. And we expect the same results. That is to say, there is this format named Vibe Radio, which is a news and musical format in Ivory Coast. We expect by a strong promotion and links with Vibe Radio ecosystem, radio station, social media, mobile, and all the power of the digital, to develop Elle, the brand awareness, the audience, and also the sales. So to conclude, from 3 years we are going this digital transformation. We think it's a strong opportunity to change a company, a better way to make a reinvented collaboration between peoples, a new identity of the radio station brand through innovation and communication, new audience and also new target group, access to new business opportunity, and the last point will be something which is more crucial, which is more and more the digital going from the traditional broadcast to digital audience, and we consider that it's an emergency to anticipate this shift of audience. This is the end of my presentation. If you need more info about what we do, you get this link, espacepresslary.com. Thank you for attention. Okay.
Well, thank you both. That's really interesting. It's been a very eye-opening time. We have a bit of time for questions, which is great. I have a microphone, and one of my jobs is to run around and make sure that we can hear some questions from the floor. So we'll certainly do that. If you do have any questions, then do raise your hand, and hopefully I'll be able to see you, which will be nice. I'm going to start with a question from myself, and then we'll take a question from the floor. Innovation, as you've said, happens across all departments. And you're both talking about ensuring that this happens transversally. I've learnt a new word today, transversally, across all of the departments. That's a really difficult thing to do. That's a lot of business change. That's a lot of people change as well. You're both doing it. What tips would you give companies that want to instill innovation across all of their departments rather than have their own small innovation team? Simon first.
The first thing, I think, is to make sure that top management has bought into it. Now, I've been lucky enough to be part of top management and be driving that over the past decade within radio, but that took me quite a while to drive it as far as I wanted to. So I think that's probably the first thing to do, is make sure that that is in place. But then, after that, it's a case of working through it and getting people enthused about the goal and the mission and what you're trying to achieve.
Alexandre, how are you finding it?
I share the same point of view. It's very difficult when we start the digital transformation to make people from radio station to have a better perception of the digital. Because from years, digital was considered like, let's say, the little media of the radio station company, and yes, we got a game, okay, put it on the digital, we got some content about that, put it on the digital, and by the time we try to integrate digital into, let's say, all the strategic meetings, for example, communication plan, but it needs to be empowered by all the people of the company, and especially the top management. It's the role of the top management to consider that digital is part of the strategy, and then to integrate the digital in all the strategic meetings. For example, communication plan of next year. You got programming people, communication people. You must have some digital people for ideas, for innovation, but also to say, okay, what we can do with new support, like Snapchat, like Instagram, how we can give a better brand awareness to our brand. So meetings and to have a leadership from the top management to lead this digital transformation.
So I'm certainly hearing from both of you that leadership from the top and top buy-in is really important. There was a question here at the front, I think it was you. Mark Cummings, where are you from, Mark?
From SBS Australia. Just a question to Simon. I was interested in the grid that you had with live and catch-up episode and flow. What we face, we're a public broadcaster in Australia, we have a lot of small niche audiences, but do you take into account there the audience segmentation that would be going into that kind of grid? You showed you had sort of different programs, because we're migrating our audiences
behind
across.
that actually is a completely different presentation, which is of, I think, 11 different segments we've looked at in terms of audience. And I think that those 4 different areas we're looking at in terms of the linear and on-demand all map into one or other or multiples of those different 11 segments. Now, I won't try and explain to you all about these segments. I've only worked for Swedish Radio for 6 months, so there are other people who know that much better than me. But it's a massive piece of work we've been doing over the last 2 to 3 years around really diving into an understanding of audience from a different perception than just the sort of the age and gender demographics.
And it's wonderful that SBS Radio are here, another fine Australian organisation. A question from back here.
For Simon from Atte, I'm from Finnish Broadcasting. You told that you are an innovation officer for the whole company, and on the other hand, you talked about the innovation team.
Yep.
So what is the role of the specialized team concentrating on innovations and doing something and failing fast, and the kind of organizational-wide innovation process you have?
So that's probably one of the biggest challenges we've got right now, is to understand how can we take a really exciting innovation lab with a bunch of 4 or 5 people, not a set team, they're different people taking in from both within our organisation and from outside our organisation, who are sort of looking on short-term projects. And how can we take that and actually make that into something that's actually becomes part of our overall business, if you like? Because it's very easy to start projects, but then it's when you see that this one works, but who owns that later? That's one of the reasons we're trying to work out how we can create this culture of innovation across the whole company, and also be smarter in terms of deciding, well, what is our goals with these different projects? So how would we, when we decide if it's a success or not, and actually what will we stop doing if we want to start doing this thing? Because we don't have unlimited resources.
How important is speed to both of you? I remember when I moved from Virgin Radio to the BBC, an old sort of executive took me aside and said, "Where have you come from?" And I said, "I've come from Virgin Radio." "What's that then?" So I had to explain what Virgin Radio was all about and all of the firsts that we had done. And then he said, "You see, the thing about the BBC is that we don't do things first, we do them properly." What's your view in terms of speed? Alexandre, I'll go to you first. Are you wanting to try things very, very quickly, or are you actually keen for other companies to take that first jump?
We get another point of view, but included the parameter of time. We consider that when we start the digital transformation 3 years ago, we invest in content, in communication, and so we decide to run this digital transformation if we get some return of investment, and it means if we get some feedbacks from the sales and by doing a better monetization. So of course, speed, time is very important, but we consider that digital for us must be, of course, to propose, as I present, a beautiful product of the radio station online, but it's also an opportunity to grow the global radio business of the station. And so we expect to years and years to develop incomes from the radio station.
So a lot of it very much for you based on income. Simon, you presumably have a different view.
Well, yeah, that's been one of the interesting things, moving from the commercial sector to public service, not having that monetization view anymore, which is still trying to get my head around, actually. Still quite fascinated by some of your slides. But I think I'll tell you a story, James. When I joined Swedish Radio, when I was in the process of joining Swedish Radio, an old executive, or probably not as old as the one you're talking about, took me aside and said something to me that Simon... No, I didn't say anything like that at all. My boss is standing over there. One of the things I said, actually, in the interview process was about my perception of Swedish Radio from the outside was of a giant, colossal institution that moved at a snail's pace. I also remember conversations with you, James, about the experiences you had at the BBC. They were very much in my mind. And I was assured...
So why did you then go ahead and join the public service broadcaster?
I know, exactly. Good question. So I, after ignoring everything that you told me, I did my own research, but in particular, the conversations I had with Björn and Silla at Swedish Radio were about the fact that there is really an appetite for change, an appetite to do new things, an appetite for innovation, and just the very fact that they wanted to employ a chief innovation officer with the same sort of ideas that I had was a good start. Since I've joined the company, I can honestly say, hand on heart, I've been so shocked and surprised at the appetite for doing new things. It's fantastic. We have an amazing set of staff that really want to do new and innovative things, and that's what we're going to be making sure we do. So speed's important, but also getting the staff on board, which I think people way before I joined Swedish Radio have done a really good job with.
So I think what we've learned today is that innovation happens everywhere, not just in a small room with a big sign on the front of it saying innovation. And with that, please join me in thanking our great speakers today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stay here to learn about the car. There's lots of exciting things going on in the connected dashboard, or there's plenty of other exciting things to go on here at Radio Days Europe 2017. Thanks.